Karl Anthony Towns gets traded to the New York Knicks. Julius Randle, Donte DiVinenzo, they are now Minnesota Timberwolves. How might this affect the Western Conference as a whole? And y'all, did the Denver Nuggets path to the title get easier than it was before? We're going to talk about all that and more here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swiper. This is your team every day. Shout out. Thank y'all so much for being here with us today. We are just 2 more full days away from the start of the NBA season, where the Denver Nuggets taking on the Boston Celtics in Abu Dhabi. And y'all, I cannot wait. I'm so excited to get to it, y'all. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season out with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Y'all, big news. Karl Anthony Towns, the man who was putting buckets on the Denver Nuggets in the top of the third quarter in Game 7, he is officially a New York Knick. Julius Randle is now going to be the power forward playing next to Rudy Gobert. And then on top of that, Donte DiVinenzo, a very good two-way guard who's a great shooter, led the NBA basically in three-pointers last year, and also is a good player that can get to the rim, can cut, athletic. There's a lot of really beneficial things to his game. And now that puts the NBA in an interesting situation, and then puts the Denver Nuggets in an interesting situation as well. One of the things that I'm most excited for is the fact that we're going to be able to see how the Nuggets counter how the Wolves are going to be able to play them in a matchup now. You know, Julius Randle is not the shooter or the floor spacer or honestly the post player in terms of his efficiency that Karl Anthony Towns is. But what he is he's a very aggressive rebounder. He's a very aggressive attacker of the basket, and he will fight on the offensive glass. And because Julius is so big, meaning that he's such a strong player, he's going to try to force the issue and create contact at every opportunity available to him. And then on top of that, he's not a great mid-range shooter, but he can hit the mid-range shot. He's not a great three-point shooter the last year at least, but he can hit that shot. Now, Julius had years where he shot about 40% and 37% from three. So is he able to get back to that, meaning he's an adequate floor spacer at the 4 spot? That's going to help them a lot. But one of the things that they're going to be able to do now, the Minnesota Timberwolves, is that, look, Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniel, Julius Randle, Karl Anthony Towns. That's still going to be an elite defensive unit. But off the bench, Rob Dillingham, Donte DiVinenzo, Naz Reid, they're going to have some players coming off the bench. They're going to have Terrence Shannon Jr. coming off the bench. They got a bunch of youngins that are going to be ready to go, including Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So their 1 to 10 is going to be very solid. They're going to have a lot of talent on their 1 to 10. But what I actually think changes for this team is more closely approximated in their ceiling. And one of the reasons that is because I think that this changes the way the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be able to will work offensively. But even on the defensive end, I just think them losing that vertical size from Karl Anthony Towns is going to make a bit of a difference. And I just think Julius Randle, he's just going to have a more difficult time trying to play as the primary defender versus Joker with Rudy Gobert operating off ball. But now I think this is going to be a big moment for Naz Reid. Naz Reid, who already got a contract making about $12 million a year. He deserves way more than that. Naz is going to be really important for this team because they're going to need a 4 that can space the floor, that can score, that can beat you off the dribble. And that's exactly what he does well. But even with that, what made the Wolves, and I think this is what Tim Connelly was thinking, I really think that primarily this was a financial decision because of the fact that Karl Anthony Towns was on a supermax. He has a $62 million play option at the end of that supermax, I believe, in the 27-28 year, I believe. But with that, they're over the second apron. And so now with this, they can save money because Julius has 1 year remaining on his deal after this. And if they want to, they'll be able to resign him for a very, I think, admirable deal. They won't have to pay the same level of money that they were paying for Karl-Anthony Towns. And then on top of that, they're able to retain having a very good four, meaning an all-NBA player in the last couple of years. And then they're going to be able to replace their loss on the bench at all any point in time with Donte DiVinenzo. So they'll be able to put up lineups. You could ostensibly put up lineups where you have Donte DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and then next to Julius Randle, next to Rudy Gobert. We'll see if Luka Garza takes any leaps at all this year, Naz Reid. So they're going to have some things that they can do in ways they can play. But in particular, y'all, I think that this matchup for the Nuggets is just going to look functionally different because of the fact that you don't have to worry about Randle in the same way as a shooter. I think this changes your coverages. I think now, depending on the pick and roll coverage, depending on how they want to switch, Rudy Gobert is not an offensive option for real. Now, Rudy had that. I knew the Nuggets were losing game 7 when Rudy hit that float fadeaway shot over Nikola Jokic. That was just out of this world crazy. But now, offensively, if you want to switch up your coverage and you don't want Joker having to play against a pop and shooter, and you don't want to have him, or you don't want him having to play as a role man versus Rudy Gobert, well, now you can put him on Julius Randle. Now you can put him on Rudy Gobert, and you don't really have to worry about the same kind of offensive presence. And again, Randle is going to try to back you down, but again, he's just not bigger than Joker. And I would even say not stronger than Joker. Now, this is going to be a more difficult matchup in some way for Aaron Gordon. Because Aaron is a very big dude, but he's still not as strong as Julius is. But I do think functionally that this is just going to look different for them. You know, on another platform just yesterday, I basically explained a part of the flex offense. I wish I could show you the board in total, but what I explained is that one of the things that the Timberwolves did really well with Karl-Anthony Towns, they would put him on that left block, and they would have either Anthony Edwards or whoever the guard was that was not Mike Conley that had the ball at the top of the key, or not Nikhil, and they would put them in the left corner, and then basically they would run a screen. Cat would set a screen, and then they would curl all the way through the rim into the other side of the court. And what that did was it would force either a switch with the guard or a wing, or you basically were giving him an easy 2 points at the basket, or you're fading off to contain the drive, and then you want to stay attached with whoever is guarding him from the baseline or from the three-point line, and then you step away, and then Karl-Anthony Towns is able to step out and shoot a three-pointer. So it puts you in a real bind, and especially somebody like Karl-Anthony Towns, that's as offensive skilled as he is, that presented a lot of issues for the Nuggets. And so in this flex offense that creates a lot of maximized spacing and shooting, creates a lot of passing lanes, and one of the things that the flex offense does really well is creates mismatches. And because of what they were able to do with Julius as a shooter, they were then able to put him and convert that to a post game. And Julius was going at Christian Brown and winning. Julius was going at KCP and winning. Not because they're not good defenders. They're all really good defenders. But on the other end of this, it's the fact that you have a dude that is this big that can shoot this well, and it forces you to play a little bit more aggressively than you might want to. And again, you know, I agree that 1,000% Aaron guarded Cat, LeBron, and Bam super well, and he did. But it's more so, again, just about the actual physicality in the middle. Like, the thing that I don't like about Julius's game, just to be clear, I don't love Julius as a player, but that's just me. I think he deserved All-NBA in 2020, 2021. I think 2022 and 23 should have went to Lauri Markkanen. He won that year and got third-team All-NBA. But the thing about Julius is, he is going to try to barrel over you with strength. Like, he doesn't have, like, a graceful touch. Like, he's not a player that has a lot of nuance to his game. He's going to try to force the issue. And so if that's going to be the case, you're going to try to do that versus Jokic. That won't work, at least not consistently. Versus Aaron Gordon, by the nature that he's trying to stay out of foul trouble, that could also work. But on the other end of this, like I said, the dynamic of the court changed, because now, so what are you doing? Are you doing that next to Rudy Gobert? Now that Rudy Gobert is going to be operating in the dunker spot still, well, then now you're going to have help over the top, because it's going to be Jokic or AG on the other side. Or if it's the bench unit, Vlaco Chanchar, Dario Saric, who's not a rim protector at all and no verticality. But there are going to be other options there. I think the issue now is that you're going to have to deal with a little bit more physicality inside. But again, I think this actually stifles them offensively in some ways, because he just cannot operate in the same capacity as Karl-Anthony Towns. But I do still think that the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be a very viable team, but I think their ceiling is lower than it was initially. And I also think they know that. They're taking the short-term loss in their ceiling this year, I think for more long-term prospects to be able to build around Anthony Edwards in the future. But on the other side, we're going to talk about, is this truly a better matchup for the Nuggets? And who's the best matchup for the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference now? And how might the rest of the team deal with the acquisition of Julius Randle? Y'all, we're going to talk about all that and more here on Locked On Nuggets. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Y'all, we'll be right back for more here on Locked On Nuggets. What's up, y'all? We are back here at Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swiper. This is your team every day. Y'all, make sure if you're listening to this on the audio side, download and listen on Apple iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. That way we continue to build this great Denver Nuggets community on Apple iTunes. If you're watching us live or watching us after the fact on YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We're on the way to 10,000 subscribers by the end of this next season. Let's get there together. Y'all, let's get right back to it. So, I think that the New York Knicks have won that trade for now, but I do think adding Julius Randle and Donte DiVinenzo is going to be a big deal. I do think their playoff ceiling is lower. I think their regular season floor is about the same, but, we'll find out. We'll have a lot to find out soon to be in the future. And also with this, not necessarily just Julius Randle's fault. It was the roster construction, the team situation, some of it his fault. Julius has played, I think, 15 playoff games. I believe he has a 46 true shooting over those 15 games, which is horrible. Like, he's not an efficient player at all in the playoffs. Not yet, at least. So you're hoping that because of the coverages that you can throw at Julius, the way you can crowd his space, that will remain the same. Because, again, the Wolves don't win that series without Karl Anthony Towns versus the Nuggets. They don't. He carried over a really hot shooting performance versus the Suns, and then he gets into that series versus the Nuggets, and he plays really well, and especially down the stretch. Anthony Edwards was 6 of 24 in Game 7. It was in large part because of Rudy, Cat, and Jaden McDaniels going 8 for 10 from the field that they were able to win that game. So the question is, the Nuggets facing them, them getting another POA defender to defend Jamal is a big deal, but I've consistently said that it's not always the level of pressure Jamal is going to face as a ball handler. It's more so dictated about his health. If Jamal Murray's healthy, y'all, then he's going to be up for the challenge versus whoever. Now, it doesn't mean every game is going to be mad efficient, but it also was the same way versus the Wolves. He was very good mostly games 4, 5, and 7. 6, not so much. But some of this is going to be, if he's healthy and he's able to move and he's able to leap and able to jump, then I do think that Jamal Murray is going to be able to be effective versus the team still. Now, he's going to have to see Ant. He's going to have to see Mike Conley, Nikhil, Jaden McDaniels, you name it. He's going to have to deal with a lot, Donte DiVinenzo. But I do think he'll be up for the challenge. Now, I think Michael Porter Jr., this is going to be interesting. Are they going to put Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards on him? I think Aaron Gordon, he's going to be roamed off of by Rudy Gobert. That's also another thing about this too, y'all. Aaron Gordon, the year they won the title, y'all, shot 39% from 3 in the regular season. Can he get back to that? Can Aaron Gordon get to the point where his three-point shot is effective enough to where it changes the way the defense is playing him? Now, in the playoffs, he still shot really well from 3 for the most part. But when you don't convince the defense that your shot is really that important, and again, Aaron Gordon three-point shot is basically the most winnable possession for any defense covering the Nuggets because it's not going to be Joker. The most dangerous shot is a floater. Jamal Murray mid-range, Jamal Murray 3, Michael Porter Jr. open or contested 3, Aaron Gordon dunks, lobs at the rim, and there's just going to be things that he has to do offensively. I think Christian Brown's another one. If he gets that starting gig, he's going to have to develop a wholesale offensive game. just to be able to make up for some of the loss of KCP, especially in the mid-range area. But I said this last year. I do think the Nuggets have it in them to win a title again. But I do think that the team is just going to look a little different than it did last year. They're going to have to be prepared for that. They're just going to be different decisions that have to be made in regards to their lineups and their personnel. Now, again, Christian Brown, Julius Randle, Peyton Watson, they all have to step up. Very well known. But I do think that when you're talking about this matchup with the Wolves, that having Julius Randle on the court instead of Cat, I think that leans in the favor of the Nuggets. Like, okay, if you want to play this kind of physical brand of basketball, well, we could do it. But we also got more shot makers than you do. And I think ultimately that's what some of this is going to be about as well. The Wolves' second option now is going to be Julius Randle. Unless Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. just go crazy or Nikhil takes such an unexpected leap. But as of right now, it's not going to be as if they have like a very good number 2 scoring option. With the Nuggets, they will in every setting. So it's just about making sure you're creating those looks, making sure you're taking advantage of those defensive matchups when they're guarding you. But also, you got to make sure you're playing good defense and making sure you're containing, especially with Julius Randle. But I do think that the Western Conference and the best matchup for the Nuggets right now is probably going to end up being OKC. But really, a lot of OKC stuff is coming down to, so when they do generate good three-point shots, will they be able to hit? Because the fourth quarter of the playoffs, it's obviously a different deal. They're going to have Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, but both of those dudes have been cooked pretty thoroughly by Joker. But they're also going to, I imagine, operate the Rudy Gobert role at times where they're going to have Chet working off ball, Isaiah on ball versus Joker. Okay, are the Nuggets going to be ready for that? How do they counter that? Did they counter a Porter at the 4? Did they counter it with somebody at the 5? Like, there's just going to be different things they'll have to do to make sure that, like, okay, if Joker's on the court, then he's going to see this off-ball help look. Okay, spread the floor out. Or Aaron Gordon, please hit your threes. If Joker's not on the court, we're going to need to make sure we have a lot of sides across the board. So it's going to have to be like AG, MPJ, Peyton, Julian, and Russell Westbrook. Or Peyton, Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook. Everybody got a rebound and contest. So I still think all of that is going to have to be sorted and figured. But if you're telling me right now the biggest threat to the Nuggets in the West is going to be OKC, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is like one of those ones. I think he's one of the 5 best players in the sport. I think he's one of the 5 best players in the world. I think his ability to be able to shot make at such a high level, to hit those mid-range shots, those turnarounds, miss other people's, like, people will throw the ball off the backboard and he'll grab it and be able to put it back up. I mean, he's a really good rebounder for a guard. I mean, you don't get the 36-6 on that kind of efficiency by accident. So if that's the case, they're just going to need to have really good POA defense from Christian Brown, from Peyton Watson. Julius Randle going to have to get those matchups. Jamal's going to have to get that matchup sometimes. Aaron Gordon, and then Michael Porter Jr. They're all going to have to do it because everybody's going to switch outside of Joker. So will they have the consistency to be able to beat them in a 7-game series? So, yeah, I think they can. Because I still think that even if they're a deeper team, they're still a team, I think, that is going to have some problems at the ceiling and at the top that the Nuggets can solve and figure out. But, man, they're going to be amazing. I mean, Casey Walls coming off the bench, Kendrick Williams coming off the bench, doesn't really play like, super crazy. Like, they just got a lot of guys. Aaron Wiggins coming off the bench. And then, like I said, now adding Alex Caruso, like, again, it's just like the amount of talent that the Thunder have. But I do think, again, finding advantages, you just have to continue to work that into your system. I think that the Suns are going to present issues just because Nurkic knows Jokic so well. They're going to play so physical together. And even like, when you're trying to like, move into more of a finesse game, they're just going to do a good job of being able to trail and lock. And, on the other end, they're going to play their own version of finesse with the pull-up shooting and all that. So they're going to have advantages as well. But again, this Nuggets can play disciplined defense, and playing with their heart and making sure they're taking care of the little things, taking care of business, they're communicating, they're talking. It's just stuff like that that really helps you to accentuate, like, how do you man up and how do you guard and all that stuff. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that if you look at the West, Memphis Grizzlies, I think they'll be back. I think that OKC, I think the Kings will be interesting this year. The Clippers will be interesting this year. The Mavericks will be interesting this year. I just think there's going to be so much for everybody to have to sort through. So we're going to have to find out once we get there. But, man, I think the Western Conference is going to be tough. Y'all, we'll be back for the final segment soon here on Locked On Nuggets. Y'all, we are back here for the final segment of Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swiper, your team every day. We're here talking about the Karl Anthony Towns trade to the New York Knicks, how this affects the Denver Nuggets with the repercussions to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're looking out into the Western Conference and saying, who do we think is going to be the biggest threat to the Nuggets? And I'm not going to lie to y'all. The more we get closer to the season and the further away we get from media day, I just kind of see how hungry Michael Malone is, how hungry the players are. Even Calvin Booth. There's just this, I think, gnawing sensation that I felt, that they know they came up shorter than they wanted to. And yet, even still, we're in a scenario now where the team is just burning because they know they have another level to go to. And that's what I'm excited for. What does a team that's already won a championship look like when their back is against the wall? What does a team that's already won at the highest level, has the best player in the world with 3 MVPs, what does that look like? And I really think this is going to be a really interesting opportunity for the Nuggets to show, like, look, man, stuff like that can happen, but this is ultimately who we are. And especially somebody like Jamal Murray, who has had to deal with a lot of narratives about his name as of late. But honestly, I think that he can have like a career season this year. Lord willing, he stayed healthy and we're able to take care of business and everything like that. So, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm really excited because I think that this is going to be a year where everybody's just going to be able to say, what are we willing to put on the table? What am I willing to do to be great? What am I willing to do, and what am I willing to sacrifice for the sake of a championship? And I think because of the way the narrative is going, because of the way the team is going, they've been off since May, basically. All that stuff put together, man, like, how do you push all that stuff into the table? That way you can take yourself to the next level. And I think the matching up with the Wolves is going to help a lot. I think OKC in that matchup is going to help a lot. I think that as they go through the season, being able to see the Lakers, see the Clippers, see the Kings, see the Grizzlies, that stuff is just going to help to build that championship equity back up. And I think especially for a team this dangerous, I mean, they can cause some problems, man. I'm being for real. And I even think, like, as we're looking at Jokic and kind of how he's going to navigate this year, I don't want to say a lot's going to be on him because I do think the bench is going to be better than it's ever been. But I do think that to some degree, look, man, this is also a year for him to really shut everybody up. He already has, but there's just been a lot of chirping, a lot of yapping, Joker this, Joker that, the Nuggets this, the Nuggets that. And it's like, all right, bet. Let's put it up. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go play ball, and let's see who the very best is. Let's see who is committed to winning more often than not. And that's what I'm really excited for, to kind of see, like, the progression of the year with Julius Randle, Peyton Watson, with Christian Brown, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, the progression as the season goes on and how exactly folks are supposed to respond to it. So, man, I'm just super excited, y'all. I actually do think, too, this is a big year for Michael Malone. I think Michael Malone, I don't think he's in trouble of losing a job unless they just absolutely flame out. But I do think this is another prove it year. You already won one title versus Eric Spoelstra. Go win another one. Go win another one. See what it costs. See what it takes. And I think that Malone, this is just going to be a test of his will and a test of his patience. And some of this because we're playing Julius Randle, Christian Brown, and Peyton Watson so much. That is going to be a very big challenge for Malone, I think, to be able to trust that the young players are going to be able to do what they need to do, that they're going to be able to make the changes they need to make. And even if I'm looking at the roster right here, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, Julian Strother, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and obviously Deron Holmes, who's not going to be playing this year. Man, that's a lot of young guys. That's a lot of young guys. There's a lot of young guys that he's going to have to trust to be able to get the job done. So, man, I'm excited to see what happens. But I'll say this. If the Nuggets are able to take care of business to get a top 2 seed this year, which I think everybody's kind of thrown out at this point. And I don't want to say that, I don't think the Nuggets, I don't have to do that. But let's say the Western Conference isn't going to be it's OKC. Let's say they win 60 games. And then let's say you get to everybody else is within 56 to 49 or something like that. Yeah, I think the Nuggets can find a way that if Jamal Murray is playing, say Jamal Murray plays 65 games this next year, they were 44-15 when he played. And then Jokic and Murray were 44-14, I believe, when they played together. I think you just put all that stuff together, man. I just think that there is just pathways for them to win a lot of freaking games this year. And I think in a way that's like championship Bible, where it's not just Murray, Jokic, Gordon, and Porter who are having incredible years, but it's also oh, snap. Peyton Watson taking a legit leap. Christian Brown's taking a legit leap. Or Julian Strother's better than we thought he would be. And then on top of that, the thing that I think and I guess I'm running a little bit here, the thing that kind of gets me about the way people talk about this team is this ain't the best bench they've had in the last couple seasons. It's even better in many ways than the championship level bench when they were horrible. They're going to have Russell Westbrook, Julius Strother more than likely, Peyton Watson, Dario Saric, and Vlatko Čančar coming off the bench. What are we doing? I just think if you're getting an influx of talent and then Lord willing they stay healthy, because that's what the issue was last year, just folks weren't healthy enough. And I do think somebody has mentioned it in here already, but Joker needs to hit his three-pointers. He needs to have a bounce back. Joker the last 4 years has gone like this. Oh, really good, not great. Really good, not great. And he had a not great year last year. So let's get the jump shot back up to what it needs to be. If Joker is averaging, 1.82 points per possession as a jump shooter. So if Joker shoots, including floaters, let's say Joker shoots 58% on his jumpers. Then let's say that's 1.16 points per possession. Yeah, you're living. If I'm able to get basically a 118 offensive rating every time he takes a jumper, then yeah, we're winning. You're doing what you got to do. I also said this. I've said this multiple times, y'all. The difference between Jamal Murray being a 21, 4, and 6 player on 47, 42, 85 splits, which this year he should be 47, 41, 90 from the free throw line. He should be a 90% free throw shooter. The difference between Jamal Murray being an all-star and where he is now is he takes 5 threes a game. There's no way that Jamal Murray should not have the same three-point value as Jason Tatum. 9 threes a game. Jamal is literally one of the, I would argue, 10 best shooters in the league from mid to three-point range, and especially when it matters most. Jamal, go get him up. 8 to 9 three-pointers is standard, star guard three-point volume in the league. Standard star guard three-point volume in the NBA. And I just think that that's where Jamal should be. I think Jamal is one of the best three-point shooters in the world. So just go put him up. And then whatever happens from that point happens. And I think, if you just even look at three-point attempts, there's just going to be a lot of players, I think, that are going to be able to put up some all-star caliber years because their shooting volume is going to be outrageous. And I think some of this is just, I think Jamal could vary up his shooting a little bit. Like in 3-point volume last year, Steph Curry led the league in 876. Luka was, in terms of 3-point volume, 744. But CJ McCollum was 557. Jason Tatum was 609. 609. Michael Porter Jr., 554. Now, Jamal Murray missed a lot of games last year, but on a per-game basis, Jamal Murray needs to be shooting 8 to 9 threes a game. And then you're hitting 41% of them. Like, y'all, if Jamal Murray shot what he did last year, so let's say 41.6% or so, that's 1.25 points per possession. So you're getting like all-time great level offensive value basically when he shoots threes because of how efficient he is. So just kick that volume up a little bit, Jamal, and then we're good. Well, y'all, that's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets. I'm your boy Swiper. What do you think about the Karl Anthony Towns trade to the New York Knicks? I think the Knicks got better. I think the Wolves got better in some ways. I think their floor is the same. I think their ceiling is worse in the playoffs. But ultimately, I do think this is going to aid the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference. Y'all know what time it is? See y'all on the other side.